guys, welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades and I'm here to get you started on Unit 24, the ER pattern. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need this blue book open to page 149. You will also need some colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark on my board, you should be marking on your page. Please save room for a key as well. You'll notice that I've already gone ahead and broken my words into syllables using those purple vertical lines. I've also used orange check marks to mark off the stressed syllables. Remember, that's the part of the word that we say a little bit louder and stronger. If you'd like to pause the video right now to add your own syllable breaks and stress marks, do that right now. All right, so we have spent several weeks now learning about R-controlled vowels. Last week we learned that UR says in words like hurry or burn or hurt. This week we're going to learn about ER. Now here's what's cool about ER. ER always says whether it's in the stressed syllable or the unstressed syllable. We know that that's not the case with things like AR. AR says R in words like arm, but then it switches to the sound at the end of words like alter. We know that OR says or in a stressed syllable, but then switches to the sound in an unstressed syllable in words like author or doctor. Well, the good thing here is we don't have to worry about any changing because ER says whether it's in the stressed syllable or not. So what I want to do now is I want to read the list of words with you, and I want you to listen for that sound and pay attention. Is it showing up in the stressed syllable or is it showing up in the unstressed syllable? Please repeat after me. Concern, conserve, deserve, desert, fertile, kernel, modern, nervous, observe, perfect, person, preserve, reserve, verbal, and verdict. Did you hear that in every word? Good. So what I want to do next is I want to go through and very quickly find our patterns. So here we have it in concern, conserve, deserve, desert. Notice in all those words the showed up in the second syllable. Here it is at the beginning. Fertile, kernel, modern. Here's a case where it is not stressed, but it still sounds the same. Modern. Nervous. Observe. Perfect. Person. Preserve. Reserve. Verbal. And verdict. Okay, nothing tricky about that this week. Anytime we want to make the sound, we're going to use ER. So ER says Okay. The next thing I want you to notice is that several words this week end with a V, a V sound, and then a silent E. So you might be wondering why that E is there, right? We know that silent E can make a vowel say its name, but clearly that's not the case here. This silent E in conserve isn't doing anything to the vowel. All it's doing is babysitting the V, right? Think about this. Silent E has several different jobs. Sometimes it makes a vowel long. Sometimes it makes a C or G soft. Sometimes it is tacked on after an S to prevent plural confusion. And sometimes it's just there to babysit the V. Because in our language, we have no words that end with the letter V. We have plenty of words that end with a v sound. Think about words like give and have and love, but they always have an E at the end. So we see that with bigger words too. Conserve, deserve, observe, preserve, and reserve. In all of these examples, that silent E is babysitting the V. Silent E babysits V. Just keeps it company, doesn't do anything else. Okay, another interesting thing I want you to notice is that the S in the middle of our words can have two different sounds. Sometimes it's soft and makes a S sound, and sometimes it makes a Z sound. It sounds more like a Z. So let's mark that up too. In the word conserve, we have a nice little S sound. But in the word deserve, it sounds more like a Z. In the word observe, it sounds like a Z. In preserve, it sounds like a Z. And reserve, it sounds like a Z. Okay? So most of the time when we're using that serve chunk, which we'll talk about more in a minute, it's going to make a Z sound. The exception is when you use it by itself in a word like serve, like may I serve you a drink? Or in a word like conserve, because of the N there, that somehow keeps the S soft. Okay, so just notice that the pronunciation changes. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about with you are the schwa sounds, right? You've gotten really good at spotting the sound in an unstressed syllable. So we see it here in concern and conserve, and again in deserve. The O's and the E's, desert too, the O's and the E's make the same exact sound, that sound. Fertile, the I makes a schwa sound. Kernel, in modern we don't have any schwa. Nervous, notice we have the O and the U working together to make the schwa sound. Observe, perfect. Now, something interesting here. A few weeks ago, or I don't know, 10 weeks ago maybe, we spent a whole bunch of time working with words that ended with CT. Collect, connect, attract. And that CT was always in the stressed syllable, and it was easy for us to hear the short vowel sound that came before it. Well, in this example, the first syllable is stressed, per, so instead of perfect, I wouldn't say, oh, you did a perfect job. I'd say you did a perfect job. That E sounds more like a schwa, an or an I sound. Person, verbal, verdict. Again, CT, CT. When you put it at the end of an unstressed syllable, the letter that comes before it will make a schwa sound. Okay, so just as in previous weeks, that is going to be the tricky part of our learning this week. Figuring out what vowel or vowel combination we need to use to make that sound. Okay, what I want to do now is go through and make sure we understand what our words mean. But I want to start with this chunk that keeps showing up. Look at the word conserve. If you conserve something, you save it for later. So think about when we conserve water. We don't want our water supply to run out or to get contaminated, so we turn off the tap while we're brushing our teeth so we can conserve water. We don't want to waste paper, right? We don't want to cut down more trees than we have to make paper, so we use both sides of the paper, right? We try to conserve it. So when you can conserve paper, you can conserve water, you can conserve your energy, right? If you know you have a lot of yard work to do later today, then maybe now instead of running around, you're going to sit and relax. You're going to conserve your energy, save it for later, okay? If you deserve something, you have earned it, right? So to deserve means to earn something. Okay. So if you are helpful at the grocery store and you're a good listener and you help your parents find groceries that they need, then they might say, okay, you deserve a treat. Let me get you a cookie. Let me get you a cupcake, right? You earned it. The word observe means to look closely. In science class, you make observations. You use your eyes, maybe use a microscope to observe things, to notice what's happening. Preserve means to save, kind of like conserve. But when you preserve something, you save it so it doesn't get ruined. So save something so it doesn't get ruined. These words are very similar, right? When you conserve something, you save it so it doesn't get wasted. When you preserve something, you save it so it doesn't get ruined, right? So if you're making jam or other types of preservatives, right? Or you're canning fruits, you're canning vegetables, you preserve it so it doesn't spoil, right? Because if you have a bunch of fresh strawberries, they're going to rot in a few days. But if you turn them into strawberry preserves or strawberry jam, the way you make it will preserve them so they last a long time. A nature preserve, that's a piece of land that's been saved so it doesn't get ruined, right? Because we want to save that land for animals. So when you preserve something, when you use preservatives, it's all about saving stuff so it doesn't get ruined. And then if you reserve something, you save it so you can use it later. Save so you can use later. So for example, you call up your favorite restaurant, you say, can I reserve a table for tomorrow night? We're going for my birthday dinner. Or you call a hotel, you say, okay, we're going on vacation in 3 weeks. Can you reserve a room for me? You make a reservation, right? And then they set it aside, they save it for you. So you can reserve seats at a restaurant, you can reserve hotel rooms, you can reserve books at the library. If there's a new book that everybody wants, you can reserve it, save it for later, so as soon as it's ready, you can borrow it. Okay, so lots of words that have serve. And if you open your book to page 152, you will learn that serve sometimes comes from a Latin word that means keep safe or protect, right? You notice that with conserve, save for later. Preserve, save so it doesn't get ruined. Reserve, save so you can use it later, right? So all of these words have something to do with saving, but it can also come from a similar Latin words that means to serve or be a slave. So if you think of the word deserve, if you deserve something, you've earned it. So somebody should wait on you or treat you, right? Because you did good work. Observe, I think I have it on here somewhere. Study something carefully so you can save an image of it in your mind. That's the link there. I know some of these connections between the words and their roots are a little tricky. But what you're going to do on this page, you're going to look at all of these great words. You're going to use what you know about prefixes and suffixes and parts of speech. to match them to their definitions below. Okay? All right. One more thing I want to do. I want to just finish discussing our vocab because we've got lots of great words. So, concern is care, right? If someone's concerned about your health, concerned about your well-being, they care about you. They want to make sure you're okay. Dessert. Now, the grown-ups get this word mixed. This is dessert. This is another kind of dessert, but this means like if you leave your friend alone at the cafeteria table and you don't come back, you desert her, right? When you desert someone, you abandon them. So dessert and dessert are two different words. This word can also be pronounced desert, right? Like a hot, dry place. So I always think of it, somebody years ago taught me this. Dessert gets an extra helping. Okay, see how you've got two S's? So when you get an extra helping of dessert, which we all want, of course, that's how it's spelled. So this kind of dessert is a treat. This kind of dessert means to abandon someone, or it can be pronounced desert. Fertile. If something is fertile, it's good for growing. So when a farmer picks a piece of land, he or she has to make sure it's fertile. You can't grow crops in the sand. You can't grow them if the soil is too rocky. You have to find fertile soil that's rich in nutrients. A kernel is a little piece. Think of a kernel of corn. Modern is the opposite of old or old-fashioned. So modern is the opposite of old, right? Some people like to decorate their home with modern furniture and modern styles, and other people like to do the opposite. They like to make it look old-fashioned. I think we know what nervous is, right? That's an adjective, a describing word. If you're nervous, you're worried about something. We know what perfect means, right? If something's perfect, there's nothing wrong with it. You can also turn this into a verb by changing the pronunciation and the stressed syllable. So instead of saying perfect, you can say perfect. So I really want to perfect my volleyball skills, so I'm just going to go to the gym and practice serving the ball, right? I'm going to perfect my skill, make it perfect. Person, you know. Verbal means having to do with talking, right? So some babies, you know, they're not very verbal. They don't talk a lot. Some kids don't talk in, you know, words. They don't really talk, they're not really very verbal until they're like 2.5, 3 years old. So verbal has to do with talking. A verdict is the decision in a courtroom. The judge makes the verdict or reads the verdict. If it's a case that's being heard by a jury, the jury decides if a person's innocent or guilty. They decide the verdict, and then the judge announces the verdict and then decides the consequence. All right, that's all I have for you today. Good luck, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.